Okay, this meeting is called to order, 6:02. And I'll pass it over to, I don't know if Joe or Dave or Mike, who's running the show today?
Turn it over to Joe and we'll start with our middle school construction update with Jamie Lynch.
Sounds great. Joe appears frozen.
Jamie, you're on.
Howdy, I think that there's a PowerPoint available that we shipped over.
Which PowerPoint is that?
Let's see,
Colonial Middle School?
probably says 320 FMT.
It's in
Is the
public
title?
content. It's in public content, Drew.
The middle school project?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Drew.
Joe got booted out. He's coming back in.
So very quickly and very easily, the first thing I can tell you is I don't have any change orders to discuss with you this evening for Colonial Middle School project. And in the month of July, we did not lose any time on the schedule. So I'm going to give more information on that in just a second. But a couple of photos here, several photos here of the school site that I'll go through. The other thing that I'll let you know is that from Hurricane Isaias, which came through the site last week, we did not have any water issues to speak of other than normal pumping of water out of the construction site. So fortunately, I'm not telling you about some type of erosion issue or some type of groundwater issue. The site performed very well in the storm. I don't know precisely, since I was out of town last week, how many inches of rain Plymouth Meeting got. What's over on these days? 5 inches? Was it more than 5 in Plymouth? I don't know. But the site performed very well. So just to run through some photos, you can see here an aerial shot of the 3-story classroom wing. As we speak tonight, that roof is entirely covering the new building. As our studs on the outside, masonry is progressing well. On the left-hand side of this photo, you see the next sequence of structural steel that has continued on, and our foundations are coming along well up in areas C and D. So if you could move forward, Drew. Just another angle. I like this photo because you can see the skyline of Philadelphia on the horizon in this photo, which is kind of neat. Yeah, the 3-story class wing there, you can see in comparison to the existing building. A couple of things to point out here is the stockpile that's out there for the bus access road, the stone yard that is now the township's that's been completed, and their storage bins are in use. And so again, the site held up very well during the month of July. If we go ahead, our mechanical room is continuing as I speak to you tonight. Several more walls have been poured and backfill is continuing. The footings for the auditorium, which are not as dramatic as they are for the mechanical room, are underway and continuing in good fashion. We've had very good quality control on our concrete, and the work has in the month of both June and July really progressed well, thanks to the efforts of Penn Builders and how they've managed this work. Go right ahead. These are photos of the new foundations in Area C, and also the building retaining wall that separates the 3-story classroom wing for the rest of the building, which is just about poured out at this point, and we're in the process of backfilling that retaining wall. Go right ahead. I mentioned the next structural steel sequence that has commenced. More structural steel has been delivered to the site, and it'll be continuing to be erected all the way through the fall. Inside starting to look like a building. We have fireproofing going on the structural steel. The exterior studs are going in. You can see when you visit or from the photos where the windows are. door frames are being installed, and then our lower level slab is the last to be poured out in the 3-story classroom wing, and it's all progressing very well. All of our contractors are engaged at this point. Here on the right-hand side, you see the restroom plumbing carriers that Myco's plumbers had put in. We have pipe hangers and duct hangers being installed by Myco for fire suppression, for duct work, and the classrooms are starting to take shape with respect to studs. The electrician is in roughing in for the first couple of classrooms at this point. So everybody is at this point engaged in the project and on site, certainly on a daily and weekly basis. And outside, we're beginning to enclose. A lot of the studs are up. The first sets of insulated metal panels have hit the job site. They're on there now, and we're waiting for the completion of the mock-up panels so we can start erecting those panels, which end up being the skin for the building. And I mentioned the roof that's gone on. So this roof, as of today, is completely across the 3-story classroom wing. So the big goal is for this 3-story classroom wing to get enclosed in by the fall so that all of the work inside can continue to progress. Outside, we're doing underground for the sanitary. That's what the picture on the left is, a trench box and a sanitary manhole, and also the sanitary for Area B, which is essentially the courtyard of the building that will eventually be covered in synthetic turf. And the retaining walls just look fantastic over there at the site. In the month of July, there's new 4-foot vinyl coated chain link fence that's been put on top of the big long one over on Park. And then I mentioned the access road earlier that we've continued to try to protect as far as the adjacent property owners and also our construction access that runs parallel to Maplewood Drive. On the last slide, I just wanted to provide you with a little bit more information on the milestones and the status of schedule. There is good news on the schedule to report. And what I've done here is identify the areas of the building and then our milestone dates for completing footings, having steel erected and finishing metal panels and or masonry in those areas. And then the ultimate projected finish dates. So the easiest way to look at this chart is to really focus in on that projected finish schedule. And the good news to report is we have 3 areas where we're currently a little late, and that's in the auditorium, library, and office, and then also in the gym and cafeteria, where we're roughly 3 weeks behind our projected completion date. All of the other areas of the building presently are on schedule. Now, there's a long way to go, right? We still have another winter to go. We have whatever other impacts we might have from construction, if you will, on as we go forward. This is all based on the June 30th update, and we had a very good month in July. So we're waiting on that schedule update from the general contractor to tell us exactly where we are. But in looking at these dates, I have to continue to be optimistic, certainly as your CM, to say, we look like we could open this building on time as planned, albeit with maybe a couple of areas that are not available, but certainly available to start school long off in January of 2022. And I know that that seems a long way off based on what you've had to do to prepare for this school year, but it really is a tribute to the construction team and the work that they have done in order to try to get this thing not only to keep going amidst the COVID pandemic crisis, but also to try to make sure that we figure out ways to pick up time. And so I'm going to report to you in this fashion, if that's okay, going forward to show you what these milestones are and continue to try to give you an idea on exactly where we are on schedule. That's what I've got on the middle school. Happy to answer any questions for you this evening.
Jamie, any complaints from any of the neighbors or any discussions with any of the neighbors over the last month or two?
There is always discussion with the neighbors, yes. So I have at least 4 fantastic neighbors who give me regular updates. One tells me how we're doing on Plymouth Road. One tells me how we're doing on Park. And I have 2 who tell me how we're doing on Maplewood. And, again, I thank the community for all of the effort because every one of the calls or texts that I've received has been helpful. We've tried to respond as quickly as we can. Those types of complaints relate to typical construction noise that occurs too early in the morning. You can understand construction folks who want to get an early start when it's cool in the morning. However, under current conditions, everyone's stuck at home, right? So I understand how that's a nuisance. So, we have policed and prodded and begged and pleaded. At times when we have a large concrete placement, the desire is to start early. So I apologize to our neighbors for that. Noise and is one thing. Mud out on Plymouth. I've got a great neighbor who has been very patient. He just lets us know, hey, the sweeper didn't run, or hey, there's muddy water or something like that. And Penn Builders is great about trying to clean it up. I think everybody would attest to that. And then there's random issues with respect to noise or what folks are doing or curiosities. So I've tried to respond directly to them. I'll work with Joe and Mike and the team, if we have to do something, beyond that.
Does anyone have any more questions for Jamie?
Jamie, I saw on the timeline, it said, I think cafeteria was the last piece, like January 18th, 2022. And I know it is a year and a half away, but is there a possibility if we stay on this timeline, is there a possibility that we would be able to get some sort of partial occupancy that we could do some moving over the winter break? Even though I know it's going into January, I'm just trying to think of taking advantage of those 10-day window from like December 21st to January 2nd.
I'm going to say a real quick yes, Mike. And specifically on the kitchen cafeteria, the schedule activity that's driving it out is actually the installation of the terrazzo tile. So you may know the terrazzo process is a laborious project, a process, a dirty process. It takes time. There's grinding involved. And there's 20 extra days set aside for it just for the cafeteria. So as we get closer and we understand where the terrazzo subcontractor is working, we're going to look to pull that terrazzo activity in the cafeteria back up into the schedule and hopefully arrest that delay. Like I said, it is a while before we get to that point, but that's the first thing. All right, why is the cafeteria late? That's one that you absolutely will need, because I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that we are done with this by then, so that you can have a fully operating kitchen and cafeteria. With respect to the library and auditorium, I think those are spaces where the library could be focused upon, so we have that. If the auditorium is a few weeks late, I certainly think that we can live in that situation or in January. So, right now we've done well. We have a lot of work to do here in 2020 in order to get the building enclosed. We're, ever hopeful, and, we always put it on the superintendent that he's in charge of weather. So, we want no snow and no miserable November, those types of things. So, everyone has done everything that they can in order to, push this along. Great, kudos really to Penn Builders. They've worked well. They've worked safely amidst the COVID process, and their subs have as well. And so we just, are hopeful for the best, and we'll continue to push while we also maintain that the safety protocols that we need to.
Thanks. Just looking to save any time we can on that December, January timeframe, so that we can get out of when we can get out of the other building, the second part, the demo and the repaving and everything gets going. So I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Jamie?
I drive by a couple times a week, and I'll tell you what, the retaining walls are really impressive. And it's really amazing to see the form that it's taking and the progress that's being made. Very, very pleased.
When the weather gets a little cooler, we'll see you all out there. How about that?
Okay, next on the agenda is the PW CES paving lighting update.
All right, Joe. You want me to talk about this?
Sure.
As you guys know, the contractors are out at the high school and at Colonial Elementary School. They've been working this summer on the paving and new site lighting. Sent Joe a field report today. The milling has all been completed. The patching of the base has all been completed. The electrical contractor has done all of his trenching and is now putting the bases in. So the work in the ground is nearly complete. There's a few more bases to install, and then they will be prepping to do the final paving. So there's a top coat of paving that goes over top now that they've milled and restored all the paving. So right now it still looks really rough. That is because it's the milled surface or the patch surface. But the final coat is going to be going on very soon. We're working with both contractors. They're trying to get on the same schedule. The paver, of course, he wants to go right away, but the electrician still has some work to do. So Joe and I are sorting that out between the two contractors, trying to get the electrical contractor to get some more guys out there to speed up where he can. Because in an ideal world, the paver would come out and start and keep going and pave the entire thing and then leave the site. That may or may not happen. But certainly the goal is to finish it this August. We're pressing the contractors to do that. And over the next week or so, you're going to really start seeing the final product as the new paving goes down. We may be installing the actual light fixtures right at the end because the delivery date for the actual fixtures is in 2 weeks. But we want to get the bulk of the heavy machinery and the pavers and all that complete and out of the picture before the end of summer. And Joe has also been working closely with your athletic director for on-site activities at the high school, kids returning, coming back up to the ball fields, and sorting that out. And the last piece is Aqua PA was also doing a project in close relation and proximity to this. They finished their work. So the new water lines are in at the high school and CES. And the final step for them too is they're going to be paving the final top coat on Colonial Drive in the near future.
So we're going to continue working to try and get the paving started. I believe DeRocco said that's the paving contractor that they would like to start paving now. Monday the 17th, I think, is their date. So you're going to see a lot of paving happening soon and a lot of closures on Colonial Drive. I'll be sure to send out emails and keep everyone posted and work with Mr. Sherman on getting them out to the community as there's closures on Colonial Drive during the day when we do this. Any other questions for Mr. Kiefer?
And we don't expect any more changes to the scope of this project. No, we're not anticipating more change orders to push us further over the contracted amount.
Not that I can see. Jim, I don't know if you're seeing anything that we haven't discussed, but not that I'm seeing, Eunice, that would push us over.
Great.
I would agree with Joe. We're out of the ground now. It's really the finished work that's happening now, which is unknown quantities. And the district did extend the contract to do some additional work at that oil tank up at the end of Colonial Drive. That was the last additional piece that we talked about.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jim. Next on the agenda is the Conshohocken wall repair. And the update is it's finally finished. The neighbors are very happy that the scaffolding is gone and their life is back to normal. I can't give them enough kind words to what they've been through in the last 4 to 5 weeks. I don't know if anybody saw it. I know we had some pictures, but it was quite a structure, the scaffolding that was put up there. So the Halifax anchors were put in, the wall was pointed, and inside there's a metal plate that with a bolt that goes through and it's welded on. So we're now, the wall's in great shape. And so I want to give, again, a lot of thanks to the neighbors. They were troopers throughout the project. So we're glad to report that that project is completed. So next on the agenda, Drew, if you can pull up Victory Fields. I just wanted to go through this real quickly for those that weren't aware. Victory Fields, just a little bit of history. Back in '99, the district and the township got together and actually condemned the property that Toll Brothers was looking to build 92 units on. Drew, you can skip through again. I'm going to go pretty quickly. But the purpose was we all saw the 6 inches of rain in Montgomery County in our area, during that horrific storm. I wanted to let everybody know when you see that field filled with water, there's a reason why it's filled with water. And just to give you a little bit of background, so the 200,000 square feet of that building of that field was designed for a detention basin. It holds roughly 2,791,693 gallons of water in the event of a 100-year storm. It just so happens that if you can flip to the next photo, that's just kind of giving you an area when we broke it down. If you see the approximate borderline, that moving forward to CES is owned by Colonial, and then the McCarthy Park property and Joshua Knoll Detention is owned by the township. So Drew, yeah, so this is just, again, very quick, just to give you an idea. So what you have down here is a manhole that goes down about 10 feet down into the ground. And what that does is there's a steel door there that basically is a baffle that doesn't allow the water to go into the township system at full blast. Next picture, please, Drew. So it goes to a 2-inch metered hole down at the bottom. So that's why you see the field build up with water, because we're releasing it slowly into the township sewage system. This was pretty sophisticated. You look at the next drawing and you get an idea of on the left when it's done, and on the right what you might have saw if you drove by. I think Dr. Christian had a dog video of someone actually running through the water. And I just wanted to make sure everybody wasn't alarmed that, that is functioning normal. We do go down the manhole monthly to make sure there's no debris or trash that gets there through the culverts that are on the property. So just figured I'd give that little bit of information to everyone. And you're going to see that the spillway, the height was increased. The neighbors had made a request, and at the time we had purchased the property. Some of you remember we called it Mount Colonial in the back of Colonial Elementary. So to get rid of that soil, we put it on the berm. And now when we put that on the berm and we raised it, we actually went to 3,492,000. I can't see what the rest, but we upped it 700,000 gallons of water when we raised the berm. So again, just a quick informational piece. I know with the storm, that was a pretty intense discussion for many years with the neighbors on that side and people getting flooded. So just wanted to give everyone a brief update on how that functions, and that it did function properly during the storm.
Joe, would it be possible to put together something perhaps even more abbreviated than what you just did for social media? Because, there was plenty of chatter about, oh no, the Victory Fields is flooded and everything's a disaster. But it would be great to show that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Sure, absolutely.
And that the school district proactively worked with the township. I think that's a nice thing to help people know. And probably lots of people weren't, didn't necessarily live here when that construction initially happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Do that, Eunice, and I'll get it to Dr. Christian and Dave Sherman.
I recommend if you do that, put something in there too, that you work with the neighbors, because that's always a nice thing to put in there. Because I remember all those discussions that.
I was here through it all. It was a process for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the Bus Depot Network. Dave, are you going to speak to that?
Yeah, I'll talk about that. So we purchased the Bus Depot in February, and it's the only property that we have that's really not on our network. So we thought that we'd bring this to the FMT tonight as a introduction. What we'd like to do is with the middle school just up the road, it's going to have to be connected to the fiber in the near future. We thought it'd be a good time to bring up this topic so that when whoever does the fiber mobilizes for the middle school, we could maybe tap into their services to get fiber to 1065 Belvoir, which is the bus depot. That would assure that we would have network capacity and capability at that area. Not that we need it immediately, but sometime the house is going to be probably used for something educational. And if we ever do put a school there, we're going to need network connectivity there. So we thought this would be a good time to bring it up so that when working with Dewey and the electrical contractors, and we look at connecting CMS, we go past the middle school and down Belvoir. And that's if we needed to run the fiber. We are going to be working with First Student to see exactly how they're accessing the network now, to see if it's a cheaper option for us. But we do believe that we'd like to get that area connected. That would allow us then to put some security cameras and expand into the future with our technology. Once it is connected, we have been toying with the idea of doing a network that would allow for a seamless upload of bus videos, so that as the network is there, when the buses return from their runs, right now, if there's a problem and we need a video, we have to go there. We have to download the hard drive. We have to put it on some kind of electronic media and then distribute that. We are looking and actually Kathy Ellis did this back in October when we found out that this was a possibility to own the Bus Depot, that we could add a wireless transmitter to the cameras that are on the buses, so that when the buses would return back to their home base at the depot, there would be a seamless upload of all videos into the cloud, and we could distribute them fairly quickly to anybody that would need to see those. So that's the capability we're looking at, to try to get a connectivity of the fiber and the network to the Bus Depot. So we just wanted to let you know that we're starting to look at that. We're starting to get some prices and investigate what it's going to take to get that property connected. Any questions on that?
In talking about uploading the videos from the buses, are you speaking just about the buses that are serving Colonial or serving other districts as well?
It would just be the buses that are serving Colonial, because the cameras that are on the First Student buses were, I guess they were defined as to what type they have to be. And First Student owns those and had those installed. We are working with the same vendor to attach the antennas or communication devices, so that as soon as they come back, they would just be our buses and the buses that have the video, and that video would be available to us instantaneously.
Okay, Dave, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, I believe, Dave, you're going to speak about non-public transportation.
Yeah, so I say the best topic for last here, with us making the decision last Thursday to go completely virtual until November 30th. There's no transportation required for our kids, but the big question is coming from a lot of the non-publics and private schools is, are we going to be providing transportation to them, even though our children are not going to be transported? So I attached, and I forwarded this to all the board members today, was the opinion by Mr. Sultanic that it says that if we are not transporting our children, he believes that we would not have to transport the non-publics. We need to know this fairly quickly if we want to or not. Christopher Brown, our new Director of Transportation, has informed me that LaSalle Academy is going back to school next Monday, and we haven't communicated any bus routes to LaSalle or to the parent. So we'd like to know whether we can say no, we're not going to have transportation, or yes, even though we don't have to do it, we're going to be providing it. So I know that there was a poll going around Montgomery County today. I looked at all the schools that were offering virtual to start the year. And with the exception of Methacton and Norristown, most of the other school districts do believe that they're going to be providing transportation for non-public. So I wanted to open that out for discussion. I know Mrs. Epstein asked me how much we spend for non-public transportation, and it's not a small amount. It's 1.5 million. That would be basically a quarter of the year. So we're talking, probably, $400,000 that this decision will cost us if we're going to be offering transportation.
So can I ask some more questions with that, Dave? Because I know I did ask you if you knew 10 schools that were going to be open, because that 1.5 million is based on all the parochial and private schools being open.
That's
so
correct.
This would probably be more like a handful of schools, even though the kids would live all around the district and need transportation to that handful of schools. It could still be consolidated down to fewer routes, correct?
Well, it would be fewer routes, but what we try to do is consolidate all the students going to a certain area. Like I think there's 3 or 4 schools on the main line that we pick up all those kids and transport them. So if we do opt to transport, we're going to have to abide by our social distancing mandates that we were going to implement with our kids, which
Right.
means only 24 kids on a bus. So if there's 48 kids on a bus heading to the main line, it's going to be now 2 buses instead of 1.
Right.
So it could get more expensive than what I just said.
So I know I asked you this too, if you could project a certain number at this point, like a guesstimate. You probably don't have that yet, right?
I don't. We poll the non-public students every year.
Right.
We do have the results. Actually, Chris Brown and Sandy Sorbaka have it in their office. That they weren't in today to provide that to me because this was put on pretty late. But I can get that information to the board this week yet. I'm looking at the spreadsheet of the survey that we had today. Cheltenham is going virtual, and they will not be providing any non-public transportation. Methacton and Norristown are the other 2. But the ones that will be, Hatboro Horsham says that they didn't make a final decision, but they do believe it's likely. Lower Marion will be transporting. North Penn and Perkiomen Valley will be transporting. Springford is transporting. Upper Marion and Upper Perk were the only ones that, and they are transporting also. So out of all those schools, only 3 are not transporting.
So I'm sorry to keep asking questions. The survey that you said went to the other families of the private and parochial families, did we send the same kind of bus survey to them that our families got with respect to would you be driving or would you be requiring transportation?
Well, we do this every year for the non-pubs. We send out an email to every single non-pub and we ask them who needs transportation.
Okay.
So we got responses. I just can't tell you exactly what the answers are right now.
Gotcha. Okay.
I know that in the information you distributed, it was saying as long as we're not transporting any of our own students, then we would be able to decline any transportation. But there was a question about the Votech school. And I know that the 3 districts that support the Votech school, we are all going virtual at this time, but there was a question as to whether there was going to be any kind of transportation for students in the afternoon. So I don't know if there's any updates on that.
So
emailed
I
Dr.
think,
Bacani. Okay,
I think it's worth just clarifying, and then I'll let the folks who know transportation talk. The plan, unless something has been worked out differently, is that our tech school kids will attend in a single cohort 1 day a week for 7 hours. So it would be a full day rather than a split day between PW and Central Monco. So they would work, if they needed transportation, it would be, morning and afternoon, but not 2 shifts over the course of a day.
right. And I emailed Dr. Bacani today. He did verify that Friday is going to be Colonial's Day to attend the VOTEC. We normally transport from the high school to the VOTEC in the morning and in the afternoon. Jason is going to be contacting me tomorrow because he said it might be easier for us to pick up the kids all around the district and just take them to the VOTEC school in the morning and then pick them up and drop them off in the afternoon. He did say that only the juniors and seniors are going to be attending the VOTEC. So that should allow us to keep our social distancing, but it will be a much larger area to pick up the kids and deliver them to the VOTEC school.
I do agree with Dr. Bacani's assessment of wanting to do runs around the district to pick up the kids. I mean, if you think about it, we normally would pick those kids up in the morning to take them to PW and then take those kids back home from PW anyway. So, it's just a matter of skipping the PW part in the middle and picking them up and taking them to the tech school.
Right.
So if we're transporting students to the tech school, does that impact our obligations for non-public? Because we are, and I don't know what we're doing, if students who have IEPs require in-person instruction, are we doing transportation for that?
Well, in Jeff's memo, it says that the IEPs would mandate transportation. He said that would not force us to provide non-public transportation. Okay. I don't think that 1 day of transport to the VOTEC school would also put us on the spot where we would have to do 5 days a week to the non-pubs, but I can run that by Mr. Sultanic tomorrow.
Yeah, my understanding is if we do any optional transportation, then we would be obligated to provide transportation to the non-pubs. At least that was what some of the people from PSBA were saying on the call the other day. So like you said, I don't know if it's from 1 day to 5 days, but I thought it was if there was any type of optionals that we would have to do it. My question is, November 30th is the day we're reassessing. But as Dr. Christian said, we're going to reassess every 3 to 4 weeks. So if in 3 to 4 weeks, we say that we can open up some of our buildings to whatever level, are our bus routes already set? I sort of am under the impression that we would need to be setting up our bus routes sort of now in case we do open in a month. So with that being, go ahead.
Our bus routes are set up now as
Okay.
if we were going to be in school 5 days a week.
Okay.
So if that happens November 30th, it'll just be some minor tweaking at that point. Or if
Okay.
it goes hybrid, again, minor tweaking, who's going to be there Monday, Wednesday, who's going to be there Tuesday, Thursday. But we're off to a pretty decent start considering
That's awesome.
the turnover that we had in the transportation department.
So then in all of that planning, which God bless you all, were the non-pubs included in that planning as well? Like, do we already have the plan for them?
A skeleton,
Okay.
I mean, we had to determine based on only the max of 24 kids on a bus right now,
Right.
how we may have to split several routes, but there should be no shortage of buses, should be no shortage of drivers, given the fact that so many people are going virtual to start the year.
Yeah, I guess that's my point, is if we're prepared to go in a month or 2 months, we're going to have to provide for the non-pubs then anyhow.
Correct.
So I err on the side of following most of the other districts and providing those students their transportation. I mean, the law is I know, I mean, we could, obviously you said you're gonna ask Jeff with the, you know, us doing the tech school, but, you know, I just, you know, I know they choose to go private, but they do pay taxes. That's one of the main benefits of, I don't know. So I don't know. What does everybody else think? It's so hard.
My recommendation is for us to do a couple of things. One, I do think we should provide the transportation to our non-pubs who presently plan to open. I think we need to resurvey them right away to see and give the same opportunity to opt out that we gave our families. And we will continue to give our families because I think that gives us a more manageable number. I think many people will choose to drive their children, and I certainly understand that. And then thirdly, I think we need to communicate with them that in the event, and hopefully it's sooner than later, we're able to reopen our schools, that it's very likely that their routes could change because you'll suddenly have, it's this big jigsaw puzzle, and every time you fit one piece, you realize there's 10 more pieces that get impacted by it. So that's not the greatest analogy, but I think you understand what I mean. But you know, we have some routes where we will combine 4 schools onto one bus because they're in close proximity on the main line or wherever. And obviously where Colonial is positioned, we transport to many schools. So it's not as big an issue if you're in Southern Chester County or Berks County or something like that. So, but that would be my recommendation. I know we have one school starting next week, but we still should get out there and survey and give parents the opportunity to opt out. And if they can, we certainly would appreciate it. And that will help manage those numbers.
Can I just add, Dave, I know since it's fluid at this point, could you just keep us apprised when you have new information, like the numbers of the people that respond to the surveys and how much you think it's going to cost between now and November 30th to do that? Because my other thoughts are too, is, you know, we could have a bus route or several bus routes to a school, but then if there's a positive COVID case, maybe that bus route has to shut down for 14 days or 10 days or whatever. So like, it's going to constantly be fluid, or if a school ends up having to close because of COVID cases. So, you know, it's always shifting.
I was trying to imagine what Christopher Brown and Sandy Sorbaka's life's going to be like, just monitoring non-publics, and it's 100 schools within 10 miles of our borders that we have to. So it's going to be a lot of communications between our transportation department and each one of those schools.
Can we, I mean, I guess another question I have in terms of communication, and Chris brought up a good point. I mean, can we sort of tell those schools, to the extent that, you know, they identify positive cases, a positive case involving a student that we're transporting, that they tell us, not the, you know, the name, but just a student on X bus route, you know, we've identified as potentially, you know, having the virus, just because otherwise, I mean, if they don't tell us, we may not know. And I guess I feel like we have some responsibility for the kids while they're on our buses. Maybe I'm wrong.
Great question. With contact tracing the way it is, we're hoping, and Mike, if you know more about this than I do, with the County of Montgomery helping us do the contact tracing, if the non-pubs would report any cases, obviously it would have to trail back through the buses and who they rode the bus with. So we're probably going to be in that loop as far as providing that information to the county.
And it's a great point, because we obviously transport to other counties as well. And there's different contact tracing definitions from county to county. That's my understanding. I'm not an expert in all of them, but I know in Montgomery County, they go back to 48 hours from when someone was symptomatic. So we definitely will need to be communicated with so that we can jointly communicate with families. We have all their contact information, but we're going to need to speak with schools. So that's really, I mean, it gets pretty deep when you think about all the different levels that the 28 contact tracers in Montgomery County are going to be doing. I think they're actually hiring more staff now. But I struggle with the disparity in some of the definitions as well of what each county chooses to do. I know we're trying to get statewide thresholds, but there's still a lot of local decisions being made, and everybody's making them with the best intentions, but they're not this. It's not the same definitions that we're all using, and I clearly am struggling with that. So we will err on the side of over communicating.
How many pieces did you say were in this puzzle?
And I just remember the one bus driver who spoke on Thursday night because of the serious concern. The bus driver is also being exposed if there is a student who tests positive. And the communication, if there's 4 different schools, students from 4 different schools on the bus, the outreach then to all of the schools, so everyone knows. Is this a decision that of us providing the transportation to the non-public students that has to be decided with a vote? Because if there are students who need to be transported, did you say the one school's opening next week? And that would be before our board meeting?
I don't believe it requires a vote. It's an administrative decision. We did seek legal advice, and PSBA, as Kathy mentioned, has issued their advice, and Jeff's responses were, we know there's no absolutes, right? He said very likely we're not required in some instances, but that means somebody can make an argument that we are required. So we wanted to keep the board apprised. I told Dave earlier today that my rec would be to initiate the transportation, but also survey and let's whittle the number down as much as we can, because I do feel there'll be families that choose to opt out for safety reasons, which is understandable. And then we will keep a close eye on all those schools without a doubt that are opening. And if they have no cases, then that's a great thing. And I certainly, I've recommended we err on the side of caution, but I hope nobody has any cases. We all do.
I think I have a silly question. I'm certain that some of the schools that we bus students to are outside of our county. Should we think about that or worry about that? I'm just trying to keep our buses and students within our county. I'm just trying to think of less contact tracing, because then those students are going into those counties where there's
Sure.
children from all kinds of places. I guess that's going to happen even in a school in Montgomery County. So I take that back.
No, you're going through all the questions that we were.
Aye.
What was
And
it?
we have, sorry.
No. I remember Eunice sent me an article of 96 questions to answer before you try to reopen schools. And I read it and I had 96 more questions after I tried to answer those. So we're all going through the same process.
Are we also busing kids, I don't know how many of them are opening in person, like to alternative placements?
Many of those schools have gone virtual,
Okay.
like Vanguard, but I'll get a list. Eunice, Karen and I were talking about that this morning.
Because I assume those parents probably, I'm hoping they already know what the arrangements are for their students, but.
We're working on that case by case, but we have about 3 to 4% of some of our special ed children that attend alternative placements. And several of those schools have decided to go virtual, or the parents, or at least provided a virtual option, and several of the parents are taking that option. But we'll get a list of those schools together for the board.
Good luck with that. With this busing situation. I agree with Dr. Christian's recommendation to move forward with providing that transportation to the non-public school students.
I would agree.
I will tell you, and please remember, we'll communicate this, but if we're fortunate enough to welcome everybody back to all schools, those routes are going to change, and we will communicate that, but it may mean things run a little longer, and I think folks will understand, but it'll take a little time. And when we get a lot of requests for changing at the beginning of the year, and we do it fairly quickly. Not this year. It may take a week or two to figure things out because it's more challenging this year undoubtedly.
If there's
Thank you.
no more questions, Dave, you have nothing left. That was the last item on the agenda.
Yes.
Are there any public comments that have come in? Nothing? Wonderful. Any board comments?
Nope, just a quick question on the CES roof. How do we do with how do you say that name, ECS?
The T section,
Yeah, did that do really well?
you did fantastic.
Good,
Dry as a bone. Dry as a bone. My office is dry. I can tell you that. That's a good sign.
nice.
It took a long
Thanks.
time, but it did. It's
Yay.
And then
You know
I
what?
have, oh, go
I
ahead.
didn't even think to ask that, Joe. I was sitting here when it rained those 6 inches and I never even walked upstairs to see.
I
But
figured I didn't get any pictures from you, Dr. Christian. We were good.
yeah, usually
No news is good news, right?
Joe's not a fan when I have my phone with me and I'm walking around the buildings. He gets about 7 or 8 text messages. Why is this here? What's that wire? What's this doing?
I got 10,000 pictures on my phone and 8,000 are from Dr. Christian.
My question was, and I had two separate people who run activities in the area, and they're asking if we're going to be permitting outside users to use our fields. And I don't necessarily need you to answer that right now, because I know there's no easy answers to anything, but definitely want to try to make sure we're, reaching out to those folks and just to make sure that they know to plan accordingly or whatever.
We did start some limited use most recently. Joe's been working with Joe and RJ have been working with those organizations. We've asked them to submit their safety plan and be specific about it, particularly with the social distancing. That has become somewhat challenging now because of the recommendation that came from the governor's office last Wednesday or Thursday. If you may have seen in the news, Allentown City proper has closed all fields, so you cannot get a permit to use any field whatsoever in Allentown. So we're allowing it, and those organizations, we ask them to reapply along with their safety plan for outside use.
Okay. Oh, great.
We're trying to create, we want kids out there playing, and we want them obviously far apart, but they need the physical activity when they can get it.
Okay.
But if we run into issues, and we have issues, like there was a youth sports issue in Upper Merion, and they had to close down that league for a while. So it takes one case to really cause a huge ripple effect.
I have a question specific to marching band, if you don't mind. In that, I don't know if they've been given a blessing to start practicing at some point, but you said that since it's an outdoor activity that, it would be easier to make that decision, but they have to go into the building, a lot of the kids, to get their equipment out to take it to the field. So that's just part of it. So it's not just simple, like they're all outside. They do have to get the percussion equipment and drag it out. So I wasn't sure if that would affect any decision.
We're in lots of questions.
I don't need an answer. I just wanted to put it
No,
out there
well,
because
we want to do it all. And then obviously today, if everybody read, the NCAA might be making a decision that's a significant one for football, for band, for all activities this fall. The Power 5 conferences, which essentially is the NCAA. But we would come up with protocols, Chris, to do that.
okay.
Since we're talking about it, we're talking about the August 29th SAT, and we're
Okay.
working on the square footage in our gymnasiums, auxiliary gymnasium, cafeteria. And I told, we're working on that plan because the College Board has said that it's a local decision. Many colleges, I wish they would come out a little bit stronger and say that they're not requiring the SAT. But many are still going to, so we're going to have to come up with a safe way to do it. We're going to use 8 to 10 feet as our barometer, because that gym is massive. And so I think we can really spread people out. The LGI is big, the cafeteria is large. And then we've had a meeting with Wonder Spring, second meeting with Wonder Spring this morning to talk about the families that are requesting services now that we're all virtual, with the balancing, recognizing we need to balance the fact that we cannot provide too much space in our schools, because that would be similar to having school. And but we do have, Wonder Spring has been very responsive, and we've talked about using our bigger facilities such as the high school and the big spaces there to accommodate. There's approximately 320 families interested, and they are existing customers, and they would agree that they are going to work to meet their needs first before taking new customers on. And then the FEL is also offering a great opportunity for families, and Denise Marks secured donations. I think it's almost $7,000. And so the FEL has a waiting list now, but they have a daycare program that will support our virtual learning. So not to get too far in the weeds, but more information to come on all of that. But it's all related to facilities. And if board members have additional questions, we worked on that Friday and this morning. I'll have more to update the board by the end of this week.
One last question. Do you know about approximately the number of kids that come in and take our SATs on any given time, like what we normally hold?
The August one has a couple hundred kids registered. Usually September and October and November are the biggest ones, Chris.
Okay.
Because of the timing of when you apply to college.
Right.
So I think the August one is usually smaller, but it's bigger because of what happened in the spring with the cancellation.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think that all the demand's going to be significantly higher as long as we're able to offer them until, the end of this year, because people are desperate to get a test for their kid.
And just an FYI, that September and October dates are literally a week apart.
Mm.
So my son is unfortunately taking them both, and they're only a week apart. I don't know, you can't really do anything about that.
No, that's where they are. And so the demand is there without a doubt. And it's not every day. It's not, we can control this a little bit more than 5,200 kids coming in. And so we're working on that. But Joe and Jason, we're doing the calculations on the square footage and what we can do. So we want to try to accommodate that for that Saturday morning.
Thank you.
And then obviously we'll have hand sanitizer all over the place, and we'll have mask requirements, and kids will be, sufficiently distanced apart. And we're fortunate to have the massive facility over at the high school now with the new gym. Proctors could be the other challenge, but I think we'll have people we'll be able to get them. And if not, the administrative team, we will all help proctor if we need to. As long as I don't have to take them, I have no problem proctoring.
Right. Any other board questions, comments? All right, this meeting is adjourned. 7 o'clock. Look at that. 1 hour.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Right.